Hi, this is Ann with Fiber Designs by Ann, and I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how, it'll be a different tag, but how I made these tags. And I call these vintage and floral and rustic. I'm going to do a different tag, and I printed the PDF out, and this is on cardstock. I'm actually going to cut one out and use it for a template on cardboard. It's not really stiff cardboard, a little bit stiffer than a cereal box, which you could use as well. Or you can just cut these out and glue some together, 2, 3, whatever you think, to get a nice stiffer card. If you print it on regular paper even, you could do that. So in today's tag that I'm going to do, I think I just said card, but tag is what I meant. I'm going to be using 2 different kinds of silk and some rice mulberry paper and some fabric leaves that I painted. This is a class that I teach as well. And some cheesecloth that I've painted. I'm also going to use a stamp that I made of a dragonfly, and I have this available. If this isn't on my blog, I will put it up there so that I'll include a link, is what I'll do. And you could print it if you'd like to do that. I'm also going to be using gel medium, and I have soft and heavy, or regular it says, but it says heavy body. Gel medium, if you don't know, is can be used as a sealer, as a glue, as an adhesive, I should say, and it can hold a little better than regular glues. It's usually archival. I'm also going to use a little bit of paint. I'm not going to actually do this, though. I'm going to just show you that the dragonfly is already done. I have a little bit of water. The dragonflies could also be done with markers. So I'm going to start by bringing my tag up, and the first thing I'm going to do is adhere my paper to the tag. And you could paint this a different color and then overlay the paper. It's kind of cool when you do that. You can see the other color comes through. But I'm going to just leave the cardboard this natural look, and I'm going to use the soft gel medium. I have a little container of water for my brush. Gel medium can ruin brushes if you let it dry on them. They're pretty much a hard brush. Maybe it could soak it off, but I don't know. Anyway, so that's when I'm in between brushing on, I will be putting my brush in that. And the cardboard, I noticed, does really soak up the gel, so you might have to be a little bit generous and fast because it dries a little faster. So I'm going to cover the entire surface. If you end up printing the PDF for this and you have to layer them up to make a thickness that works for your tag, be sure and punch the holes out of each one before you layer them together, because it will be easier that way. So now I've come to the bottom of this, and I'm going to go back up to the top and put some more on there. This paper is very thin. Sometimes you're supposed to, it's a good idea, I should say, to put the medium on the object that you're putting down, but this paper is really thin, so I don't worry about doing that with the paper. And then I'm going to brush it out gently because it's being thin, it's very tender. And I don't care if wrinkles get in there, it just all adds to the texture, and I like that. So I'll just make sure it's adhered all around. And I'm not going to worry about the edges at this point in time. Now I could and should wait for this to dry, but I'm not going to. I could use a heat tool on it and dry it quickly. I do want to move it because it'll probably be sticking to that. Let me spritz a little water and clean this off. So that's my first fiber. The idea of this challenge is to use at least 5 fibers, but sometimes I get carried away. Okay, I'm going to use my heavier gel now, and you could use regular glue if you want. And I actually took a picture with my phone. I laid my pieces out and I took a picture with my phone so that I could have something to look at when I'm applying these. And I think that's probably a pretty good idea. So I'm just going to lay down in the shape that I have cut out. And this is, I don't know what kind of silk this is, I should say, but it's really nice. It's got kind of a natural grassy kind of look to it. I just love it. And it unravels really neat. So I'm going to put that piece there, and then I'm going to take another one. One thing about it, I've washed my hands a lot, so my hands are dry, and silk and dry hands are not a good combination. And then I'm going to put another piece up here. So if you see me struggling with the fibers, that's why. And I may or may not put gel medium on the top of these. I think right now I'm going to just let them press down and be there. And I've taken this little bit of cheesecloth, gauzy stuff, so here's where I will put some down on top to adhere that. And this could go just about any way. You can manipulate those fibers and make them do what you want them to do, sort of. It's kind of fun. I really like painting cheesecloth and using it in pieces. It's great. So now I have, what I did with the rusty color silk was cut little circles. If you have a punch of some sort, that would be ideal for this kind of task. But I just did it by hand. And I'm just going to sort of put some medium where they go, where I want them to be, I should say. And these will unravel. This is Dupioni silk, and they could unravel. I'm going to brush a little on top. This is a matte medium. It's not shiny. I could go over the end of this with a shinier product like Mod Podge, or even a matte excuse me, gel medium that is glossy. But I'm going to just leave it natural. Now I have little leaves. Like I said, these are leaves that I painted. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. You can see that just a little bit better. Now, leaves could go a lot of different ways. I like to put a lighter leaf toward the top usually. And even if I have a plan, it doesn't always work out the way I'd planned, but usually that's good too. It shakes things up a little bit. So you can see how simple this is. I'm just taking the medium and laying it down, adding the elements. Now, I didn't talk about the dragonflies too much. The dragonfly is on this PDF, and I cut it out. You can paint it before or marker it before you cut it out, and then just be sure and do the edges. On this one, I actually painted it, and at first it was markered, and I didn't like that, so I painted it, and then I did the bag as well because I want his wings to be up a little bit. And there's a little bit of gold or metallic color on here because I was just messing around. And this one is actually, whoops, if he falls in the gel, he may stay there. That one is actually, I stamped it on, this is homemade fiber paper. But I stamped him on that paper, so he's more delicate than the one that's on cardstock. And that's kind of just a fun, different decoration. And I'm gonna sort of lay these out and see, and hopefully they won't glue down. See how I like them. Wanting to avoid the hole, of course, and I think I want him facing up. Like that. So instead of totally sticking, and they can hang off, it's okay if they hang off. as long as that works for you, I'm going to put a little heavier gel on the bottom of his body, and I'm going to set him on here. And now his tail's not off, so that's okay. And his wings are up, so I'm not going to push it down really hard, just gently, so that the glue, the gel goes into the paper and the card, the tag. I like that. And he's curling up, but I don't, because he's so delicate, I actually want him to be totally down. So I could put it on the back of him, but I think if I do that, I'm going to have it really stick into my hands. So I'm going to just sort of look and see how I want it to be on here. Oh yeah, and yes, I forgot. I'm using a little tool that's kind of the color of these pieces of silk, and that's going to go in the hole, which if I let this dry, I would have punched that hole already. But I'm just going to put him on there and kind of just look. His tail's not hanging off, and he's here, and his tail's stuck right now, so that's kind of good. I'll just use that. Because he's delicate, tender, he may just, once he goes down, that may just be where he's staying. So that one I will just tap all the way down. Realizing that with tender things like this, very thin things, the line from the silk underneath may show in those areas. I'm okay with that. And this one I think I will brush gently on top. Put my brush in my water. And I'm going to cut away my edge. I could turn the edge. Let's see, which one did I do that on? I did it on this one. I turned this was a paper towel. I should talk about each of these. I will try to do that. This was, sorry if it went out of focus. This was paper towel on the background of this piece that I had used it to wipe paint jobs up. And I wrapped it around the edge, and then I cut another piece of that same paper towel with this happened to be a rotary pinker. Or did I use scissors? No, it was a rotary pinker. And then I just adhered that to the back, so it makes a nice finished back. On most of them, I don't worry about the back because you might want to write to and from or write something on the back, so I just leave it blank. You could certainly use a pretty decorative paper or something. But in this case, I'll be careful because things are so wet, and I'm going to just cut along the edge. And this would be easier if this was really dry. And if the medium went on the edge, or you can put some on the edge and just sort of gently rub that down. So it's not really going on the back, it's just on the edge. And you want to be sure and wipe any medium off of your scissors when you're done, because they might glue shut. This gel medium is really great if you're doing assemblage pieces, or like I do altered bottles and things like that, and it holds materials, different elements really, really well. Okay. Let me cut this a little better. So then you could just glue that edge down if it's not sticking down well enough for you. And I want that to be really dry when I hole punch it, but I'm going to live dangerously and see if I can hole punch it without it totally pulling my paper. If you have one of those fancy dancy punches that you just slip the card into, that would be great. I reach over here. This isn't it, but I have a chopstick that was all the way in there perfectly, and that's kind of good for this task. I can see that I'm going to want to put some gel medium around the edge of this to hold that down, but for now in this demonstration it'll be just fine. Then I take my ribbon or whatever you're going to use. This is very, very fine tool. This tool is actually what I set on his wings, and then I dabbed it to make a little stencil mark, thinking it would be so great, and it's okay. So I come from the back, which will probably bring all those loose papers that aren't glued down up, but that's all right. And I fold it in half and I come through the back, and then I put the ends through. I'm being careful because he's so wet still. And then I pull it, and those are way long, so let's Let's give them a little haircut. And there's my fourth tag, and let's see how many fibers. The paper, you could count the cardstock, that, or the cardboard, that's one. This paper is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Technically, I think that's 8 or 9. And I really like the way that looks. I hope this was helpful in making your own tags and that you're going to participate. And thank you for supporting Visions Art Museum. And we'll see what the next challenge brings. Take care, everyone. Thanks. As far as the tags here, this tag that I'm calling Vintage has, this is homemade fiber paper, and this is burlap. This is a brown paper bag that I wrinkled and smushed and opened and wrinkled and smushed until it became pretty soft and wrinkly. This is just a piece of lace that was from a larger piece that I cut apart to just get this ornamental part. And then there's a little teeny row of tatting down here, and I'm not sure, but I'm pretty positive that my grandmother did this. And then I just took a little bit of paint on a, let's see, one of these little ball dauber things, round dauber things, and I just touched all the way around the edge. Then this is just a little piece of string. On the floral, this ribbon that I used up here has holes in it. It was actually folded, and it's bias tape essentially, but it's on a sheer fabric. It was on a strip of ribbon that was gathered, and I didn't want the gather, so I took it off, and then I realized I could use that as well. This is on paper towel that I used to wipe up when I'm painting. Straightened it out when I was done, let it dry, and pressed it, so that's got a neat texture and colors. Then I have a piece of this white back here. This little mesh is a produce bag, and I used another produce bag that, let's see if I can find it here. This orange, I used that to make this as a stencil to make this print on the underneath here and back here. It worked really great. That was a fun surprise. And then this is organza silk, or silk organza. This is a regular silk, like a silk scarf. It's very soft and beautiful. Then these are little felt cups that I make. I take eco felt and I burn the edges, and it forms a little cup. And then I just did some embroidery stitches in the center. And then these pieces are pieces of silk that were just unraveled. Instead of throwing them away, because I was using the main piece, I decided to save them. This is raffia, the green. I think that's all the pieces on that. And then on the rustic looking one, I have just pleaced black ribbon that I've raveled for the tie. I did use a little grommet rivet thing, whatever they're called, ring in here and the hole on this one to just give it a little more industrial kind of look. I used this black mesh fabric. Let's see if I can find a piece of that. So this really neat black mesh fabric. And I used it here, but as well, I used it to make these, I used it as a stencil to make these gold dots. I was really excited about that. And then so it became gold, you can see maybe here, and I used that whole piece here. Then this is a piece of lace, again, and under the key is a piece of, it was a piece of cardstock, corrugated cardboard, and I didn't quite like the way it looked, so I laid a tea bag, a stained, obviously, tea bag on top of that and just rubbed it in with the gel medium. I glued it down. And then this key is actually paper clay. So I made a mold with a real metal key in, I think I used, for this mold, I think I used hot glue. And then I put, once it was hard, I removed the metal key and I put the paper clay inside. And I was really excited with the way that came out. It had a little bit of texture. And then I just went ahead and took my finger with some dry finger with some paint, and I just rubbed it so it caught on all the raised parts. And then this is a little bit of metallic thread that I braided, several pieces that I braided into a little braid, and then just glued it down. And the backs of these are just plain. I did a little tried ink and it didn't work so well for me with the dauber, so I did a little bit of paint around the edge just to darken it and make it look a little more old. So that's those three tags, and oh, I forgot, there's beads on here, and I did not stitch them on, I just put some gel medium down. Actually, this was a tacky glue, and just stuck the beads into that to give it a little more sparkle. And that's how those are the fibers that I used for those tags.